All right, everybody, welcome to another deep dive. And today we're tackling something I think a lot of you out there are going to love.
Yeah, this should be fun.
We got a request from a listener who wants to know
Mm.
all about building a powerful PC,
Right.
but in a tiny case.
Yeah.
And not just any tiny case. We're talking the M2.
Oh, yeah, that's a tight squeeze.
Yeah, so think of this as like PC building meets like
A 3D jigsaw puzzle.
yeah,
Yeah.
super high stakes Tetris.
You got to get every millimeter just right.
Absolutely. And luckily for us,
Yeah.
this listener sent us a document
That's right.
that they've been using to kind of plan out their build.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some really cool stuff in here.
Oh, yeah. Some really clever solutions.
Yeah, we're going to talk about things like riser cable choices.
Oh, yeah. That can make or break you.
Seriously, and fan placement.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh.
Yeah. That's like,
It's a game of millimeters.
it's like a game of millimeters.
You're wedging things in.
Yeah, and even...
Then a little bit of undervolting magic to keep things
Oh, yeah. Got to keep it cool.
nice and frosty.
Absolutely.
So
Should we jump right in?
let's do it.
All right.
First thing that caught my eye in this document
Mm-hmm.
was their emphasis on using a 90-degree riser cable.
Oh, yeah. That's a key one right there.
Now, I gotta admit,
Sure.
in the past, I've just kind of grabbed whatever riser cable's been lying around.
Yeah.
But
However fits.
why?
Why is that 90-degree angle so important for this specific M2 build?
Well, you gotta think about the layout of the M2.
Okay.
It's designed with bottom intake fans, right?
Right.
So those fans are sitting directly beneath where your GPU is gonna be.
Gotcha.
And if you use a straight riser cable,
Oh.
you're essentially blocking all that beautiful fresh air
Ah.
from reaching the GPU's fans.
So it's not just about,
Mhm.
like, physically avoiding a collision.
Right. It's not just about clearance. It's about airflow dynamic.
It's about creating, like, a...
Clear path for that cool air to get where it needs to go.
Absolutely. You want that 90-degree bend
Mm-hmm.
to give those bottom fans the room they need to breathe
Yeah.
to pull that fresh air in.
Makes perfect sense.
The document also mentions
Yeah.
making sure you check the cable length and flexibility,
Oh, yeah.
which,
Especially in a tiny case.
makes sense in a small space like this.
Yeah. You don't want it to be
You don't want it
too short.
too short and straining or too long and creating a rat's nest.
Yeah. It's like the Goldilocks zone of
Exact.
riser cables.
Just right.
Now, speaking of airflow,
Yeah.
let's talk about fans.
Oh, yeah. Those are essential.
Because the document has a pretty interesting fan setup that they recommend for this M2 build.
Definitely. And those two bottom fans we were just talking about,
Mm-hmm.
you might actually need to modify things a little bit to make them work perfectly.
Oh.
Yeah, a little case modding never hurt anybody. Right?
Oh, I love it when we get to break out the tools.
All right. So what they suggest
Yeah.
is using 15 millimeter feet for the case.
Okay.
So essentially what you're doing is you're giving that whole case a little lift
Right.
to increase the clearance for those bottom fans.
So you're giving them some breathing room underneath.
Yeah, exactly. You got to let those fans pull that air in.
It's like making sure your lungs have enough space to expand.
I like that analogy.
Mm.
Yeah, you need that unobstructed flow.
Mm-hmm.
They even mention using slim 120 millimeter fans
Whoa.
if space is really, really tight.
Okay.
Now, I'm guessing those slim fans probably don't move as much air
Yeah, I was going to say.
as the full-size
Well,
counterparts.
It's going to be a trade-off there.
There is a little bit of a trade-off,
Yeah.
but in a space-constrained build like this,
Yeah.
they can be a real lifesaver.
They can make it work.
Now, another thing they mention is fan grills,
Oh, yeah.
especially for those bottom fans.
I was going to say, especially for the bottom ones.
Yeah, and I think...
I've learned that lesson the hard way.
Yeah,
Rogue cables.
absolutely.
Getting caught in fan blades.
A good time.
It's not a good time.
It's a recipe for disaster.
So those fan grills are really important, especially in these cramped builds where everything's packed in so tight.
Yeah, they protect your fans from dust,
Mm-hmm.
stray cables,
Yeah.
all sorts of things that can really impact performance and longevity.
Absolutely. So we've talked about riser cables and fans, but there's another beast we need to tame in these compact builds, and that is cable management.
Ah, yes, the dreaded cable crack.
Oh, it's like trying to stuff a tangled mess of Christmas lights back into the box after the holidays.
And in a build this small, those messy cables can really strangle your airflow.
Oh, yeah, you're just choking out those components.
But fear not, because the document highlights a hero in this story, and that is custom PSU cables.
All right, let's talk about custom PSU cables. I've heard they're game changer, but I'm curious to hear what the document highlights specifically about their benefits in this build.
Well, they emphasize how those shorter, more flexible cables are really tailor-made for navigating these tight spaces,
Right.
like we have in the M2.
Less clutter equals they
Exactly.
make better airflow.
Less clutter, more airflow around your crucial components,
It makes perfect sense.
especially around that GPU and CPU.
Yeah, gotta keep those guys happy.
Keep them cool.
Now it sounds like custom cables are almost essential for a build like this.
They really do make a huge difference, but it's not just about the cables themselves.
Right.
The document also dives into some practical cable management techniques that are pure gold.
Okay, hit me with those tips. I'm always looking for ways to up my cable management game.
All right, so first they suggest investing in custom length cables,
Okay.
which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
You get the exact length you need.
Yeah.
You eliminate any excess bulk
Right.
that's just going to clog up your airflow.
Makes sense.
And then, of course, there are our trusty zip ties,
Oh, yes.
the duct tape of the PC building world.
Cannot have enough.
You can never have enough.
Zip ties.
They're essential for bundling and routing all those cables nice and neatly.
Absolutely. And what about those situations where you need a little bit more reach?
That's where cable extensions come in.
Okay.
So you can get those components positioned just right,
Right.
without introducing a ton of extra cable length.
It's like finding that perfect balance between keeping things tidy and still having the flexibility to
Exactly.
adjust your setup.
You got it.
Now, they also talk about GPU sag,
Yes.
which, while not unique to compact builds,
Right.
is definitely something to pay attention to in a tight space like this.
Absolutely.
Because that sag,
Yeah.
caused by the weight of the car,
That weight can really
they can put stress on.
put a strain on that PCIe slot and the riser cable.
Right.
Over time, that can lead to problems.
Yeah. That's exactly what we're trying to avoid with this whole deep dive.
Absolutely.
So what's the document solution for preventing GPU sag in this particular build?
So the M2 build they're looking at actually uses a two-pronged approach.
Ooh,
Support bracket and zip ties.
nice.
Talk about giving that GPU some extra security.
Yeah, it's like a little
Yeah.
safety net for your precious graphics card. Yeah.
Exactly.
I like it. Did they mention any specific types of brackets or any tips for placement?
They didn't go into specifics about the bracket itself,
Okay.
but they did emphasize checking that PCIe slot alignment
Right.
before you secure everything down.
Yeah.
Because even a slight misalignment can add to that stress.
Right, because it's not just about holding the GPU up, it's about making sure it's sitting
Exactly.
properly in the slot
You got it.
without any
Without any pressure.
added pressure.
You want everything nice and flush.
Makes perfect sense.
It's all about those little details that add up to a stable, long-lasting build.
Now, speaking of stability,
Yeah.
let's talk about something that might sound a little bit intimidating at first. Undervolting.
Undervolting, yeah.
Well, I'll admit, the word itself used to make me a little nervous.
Yeah, it can sound a little scary.
Yeah,
But over the years, you've helped to demystify it quite a bit.
I've tried my best.
You have.
For those who might be hearing it for the first time in the context of like a compact build.
Can you give us a quick rundown of what undervolting is all about?
So think of undervolting like fine-tuning your components for peak efficiency.
Okay.
You're giving them just the right amount of power they need
Mm-hmm.
without overdoing it.
Gotcha.
And in a compact case, where heat is the enemy,
Oh.
this can make a world of difference.
It's like whispering to your components, hey, can you still perform like champs while generating a little less heat?
Yeah, it's about optimizing their performance while keeping them cool under pressure.
And speaking of performance, that's something we need to dive deeper into, because what did this document find when they applied undervolting to both the CPU and the GPU in this M2 build? Were there any noticeable changes?
Actually, that's where things get really interesting, and we'll pick it up right after this.
Okay, so we left off on a bit of a cliffhanger. You mentioned things get interesting when we look at what happened when the document applied undervolting to this compact M2 build. Oh yeah, it's not just interesting, it's almost counterintuitive. You'd think that giving components less power would hurt their performance, right?
Yeah, that's what I would assume.
But the document actually saw improved performance during demanding tasks after undervolting.
Wait, so by giving the components less power, they actually performed better?
Yeah, it sounds crazy, but it all comes back to heat,
Okay.
or rather the lack of it.
All right, so how does that work?
By reducing the power consumption, they significantly lowered temperatures.
Okay.
And that, in turn, reduced thermal throttling.
So it's like taking your foot off the gas a little bit.
Exactly.
So that those components can actually run more consistently with
Without hitting those
Yeah.
temperature limits
Yeah.
that force them to slow down.
Wow. So it's this delicate balance between
Uh,
bright and heat.
It is, and it's a classic example of how thermal management is just as crucial
Mm.
as raw power when it comes to overall performance,
Especially in a compact build.
especially in a compact build where heat can build up so quickly.
Yeah. Right. So all this talk about undervolting is making me want to try it on my own system.
You should.
But I gotta admit, I'm still a little intimidated by the process.
I get it. It can seem a bit daunting, but honestly, it's not as complicated as it sounds.
Okay.
The key is to take it slow,
Yeah.
do your research, and be methodical about it.
So first things first, research, got it.
Right.
I'm guessing there are different approaches depending on whether we're talking about the CPU or the GPU.
Absolutely. For GPUs, software like MSI Afterburner is going to be your best friend.
Okay.
It gives you granular control over voltage and other settings.
It's like a Swiss Army knife for tweaking your graphics card.
That's a great way to put it.
But what about the CPU? Is it a similar process?
For CPUs, you can usually adjust the voltage directly in the BIOS.
Okay.
Most modern motherboards will let you do that.
Okay, so we've got the tools, we've done our research.
Yeah.
What's the next step? Do we just start cranking down the voltage and see what happens?
Whoa, 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 hold on there.
Okay.
The golden rule of undervolting is small incremental adjustments. Baby steps, not giant leaps.
Got it.
And you want to test for stability at every step along the way.
Testing stability, so making sure the system doesn't crash or start acting weird after each voltage tweak.
Exactly. And this is where monitoring software comes in handy.
Okay.
Tools like HW Monitor or even MSI Afterburner itself
Right.
let you track temperatures, clock speeds, and other vitals in real time.
So it's like having a team of tiny engineers inside your PC,
I love that visual.
constantly checking for any signs of trouble.
Right, they're keeping an eye on everything.
So when we're monitoring, what are some of the key things we should be looking out for?
Well, temperature is obviously the big one,
Right.
but also keep an eye out for any performance drops
Okay.
or system instability.
So if we start seeing things like lower frame rates in games
Yeah,
or the system crashing, that's a sign we've probably pushed the undervolt too far.
exactly. It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
You want to find that sweet spot
Right.
where you're reducing voltage and heat output
Mhm.
without impacting performance or stability.
This whole undervolting thing really highlights how interconnected everything is in a PC build,
Absolutely.
especially a compact one.
Especially in a small form factor.
It's not just about raw power. It's about understanding how all these components work together.
Right. And the document even mentions how your undervolting success can be influenced by external factors like the ambient temperature of your room.
Oh, that's interesting. So like someone living in a hotter climate might not be able to undervolt as aggressively
Exactly.
as someone in a cooler environment.
Yeah, it's like your components have a baseline temperature they're already dealing with.
Right.
So your undervolting headroom might be affected.
Makes sense.
Mm.
And to bring it back to this specific M2 build,
Hmm.
the document achieved lower idle temperatures, ND improved performance during demanding tasks with undervolting.
Pretty impressive, right?
Yeah, it's a testament to the power of careful tweaking.
It really is, but they also point out that undervolting isn't a magic bullet for all thermal issues.
Yeah.
If you have a poorly designed case with bad airflow, even the most meticulous undervolting might not save you.
It's like trying to cool down a sauna by opening a tiny window.
Exactly. You need to address the fundamental airflow problem first.
Right, you got to get the foundation right.
But even if undervolting isn't a complete solution on its own, it's still a valuable tool
Absolutely.
in the arsenal for optimizing a compact build.
Now, speaking of tools, there's another aspect of this document that stood out to me. They talk about specific fan models and brands that work well in this M2 case.
Oh, yeah. Let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Let's dive into those details because fan choice is something I'm always curious about,
Me too. There are so many options out there.
especially when it comes to these compact builds.
Yeah, space is limited,
Airflow's king.
so you got to choose wisely.
Let's see what the document recommends. All right, so we've covered so much when it comes to this M2 build.
Yeah, we've really gone deep
From razor cables to fans,
to
undervolting.
cable management.
Oh, yeah, all the little details that matter. It's clear that every little thing you do makes a difference,
It really does.
especially in a compact build.
Yeah, it's like building a tiny high-performance engine where every component has to work in perfect harmony.
Yeah, and speaking of those components,
Yeah.
you teased some specific fan recommendations
Oh, yeah, that's right.
from the document.
Let's dive into that.
I'm all ears because fan choice can be so overwhelming
Oh, yeah.
with all the options out there.
There are so many fans to choose from.
So many fans,
It's hard to know where to start.
especially for a compact build like this.
Yeah. So what do they recommend?
Well, they actually highlighted a couple of interesting options for this M2 build.
Okay.
First, they suggest considering Noctua NFA 12 by 25 fans.
Ah, the noxious.
Now, these are known for their quiet operation and impressive static pressure.
Right, which is crucial for pushing air through tight spaces.
So they don't just move air, they really force it through those
Yeah, they're little workhorses.
nooks and crannies
Yeah.
where heat can build up.
Yeah, got to get that airflow going.
Perfect for a compact build like this.
Absolutely. But they also acknowledge that sometimes you just need slim fans
Right.
if things are really tight.
Yeah.
And in those situations, they recommend the Scythe K's Flex Slim fans.
Oh, yeah. I've heard good things about those scythe fans.
They're great.
Super thin,
Yeah, incredibly thin.
but still move a decent amount of air.
You get a good balance
Yeah.
of performance and size.
Now, the document also points out that
Mhm.
fan orientation can make a big difference.
Oh, yeah, that's
In
correct.
a compact case,
Absolutely.
they recommend having the top and rear fans as exhaust,
Right.
pulling that hot air out of the case.
Get it out of there.
And then the bottom fans
Yeah.
act as intake.
Yeah, pulling that nice fresh air.
Yeah, so you're creating this directional airflow pathway,
You got it.
almost like a wind tunnel.
Yeah, keep everything nice and cool.
It's amazing how much thought has to go into something as seemingly simple as
You would think it's just plug and play.
fan placement.
But no, there's a science to it.
Yeah,
It all ties back to that holistic approach.
right.
You know, every decision you make
Mm-hmm.
impacts the overall performance and stability of your build.
Now, speaking of stability,
Yeah.
there's one more crucial aspect of this M2 build that we need to address,
Okay.
and that's making sure that GPU is mounted and aligned properly.
Absolutely. We touched on it a little bit earlier,
We did.
but it's worth reiterating.
Yeah.
Because even with a support bracket and zip ties
Right.
to help prevent sag,
Yeah.
that GPU's alignment in the PCI slot is absolutely crucial.
For long-term reliability.
Right, because even a slight misalignment can create stress
Yeah.
on the slot and the riser cable.
And nobody wants a broken GPU.
Nobody wants that.
Right. So the document actually recommends double-checking the alignment after installation.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Yeah, make sure the GPU is flush with the back of the case.
Right, nice and even.
And there's no visible bending or strain on that riser cable.
Exactly. You want everything to be sitting perfectly.
Like making sure the foundation of a house is level.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, before you start building.
It's all about that solid base.
Any instability at the base can lead to major problems down the line.
You got it.
Hmm.
So for our listeners out there who are inspired to tackle their own compact build,
Mm-hmm.
what are the key takeaways they should keep in mind?
Well, first and foremost, I think planning is key.
Absolutely.
You really got to think about your component choices,
Mm-hmm.
your cooling solutions, your cable management strategy.
Yeah, before you even start assembling anything.
Before you even open a box.
Get that plan down on paper.
And don't be afraid to experiment.
Exactly.
And try different things. What works for one build might not work for another.
Right. Find what suits your needs and preferences.
And most importantly,
Yeah.
have fun.
Oh, yeah.
Building a PC should be an enjoyable and rewarding experience.
It should be.
And I think compact builds,
Yeah.
while they are challenging,
They are a little more challenging.
they offer the unique sense of accomplishment
Oh, yeah, for sure.
when you see that powerful machine come to life in such a small form factor.
It's like you've tamed the beast
You've done it. You've squeezed it all
in
in.
this tiny little box.
To go forth, build and amaze us with your creations.
Yeah, we want to see what you come up with.
And as always,
Yeah.
feel free to reach out with
Absolutely.
any questions.
We love hearing from you.
Share your own compact build adventures.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
Until next time, happy building.